What if I told you that one of the world's most successful companies just burned through $60 billion dollars, and they're not stopping? This is the story of the most expensive bet in tech history, and it's happening right under our noses. Meet Meta, the company behind Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. With 3.9 billion users worldwide, they're printing money like the Federal Reserve. In 2024 alone, they made over $134 billion in revenue. Their advertising machine is so powerful that small businesses around the globe depend on it to survive. Every scroll, every like, every share translates into billions of dollars flowing into Meta's bank accounts. But here's where this success story takes the most dramatic turn in corporate history. In October 2021, Mark Zuckerberg stepped onto a stage and dropped a bombshell that would change everything. Facebook wasn't just Facebook anymore. They were Meta. And they weren't just a social media company anymore. They were betting their entire future on something that barely existed, the Metaverse. Zuckerberg painted a picture of a digital universe where people would work in virtual offices, attend virtual concerts, buy virtual real estate, and live parallel lives through avatars. He promised us Ready Player One, but in reality, he was about to embark on the most expensive gamble in business history. The transformation wasn't just cosmetic. Zuckerberg restructured the entire company around this vision. He hired thousands of engineers, built massive data centers, and poured resources into developing hardware that most consumers had never even heard of. The company that had mastered connecting people through screens was now trying to convince those same people to strap computers to their faces. Enter Reality Labs, Meta's Metaverse division, and the center of our story. Since 2020, this division has been hemorrhaging money like a burst dam. We're not talking about startup losses or growing pains. We're talking about losses that make other corporate disasters look like pocket change. Let me break down the carnage for you. 2020, $10 billion lost. At the time, this seemed like a massive investment, but people thought it was just the cost of entry into a new market. 2021, another $10 billion vanished. Investors started getting nervous, but Zuckerberg insisted this was all part of the plan. 2022, $13 billion disappeared. Now Wall Street was in full panic mode. Meta's stock price crashed, losing over 70% of its value. 2023, $16 billion gone. The bleeding was getting worse, not better. 2024, a staggering $17 billion lost in just 1 year. Add it all up and we're looking at over $60 billion dollars. Simply gone. Evaporated. Burned. To put this astronomical figure in perspective, that's more money than the annual GDP of countries like Croatia, Uruguay, or Luxembourg. That's enough money to buy Netflix and still have billions left over. That's more than what most Fortune 500 companies are worth entirely. And yet every quarter, Meta's executives stand before investors and explain why burning through billions more is somehow a good idea. So what did all this money actually buy? The answer might shock you. While Meta spent more money than most countries see in a decade, their flagship metaverse platform, Horizon Worlds, peaked at around 300,000 monthly users. To put that in context, that's fewer people than live in Tampa, Florida. A single TikTok video can reach more people than Meta's entire virtual universe. Meanwhile, games like Fortnite, which cost a fraction to develop, boast over 400 million users. Roblox, created by a much smaller company, has more active virtual world users than all of Meta's metaverse platforms combined. The disconnect between investment and results is staggering. Meta spent billions developing virtual meeting rooms that remain mostly empty. They created digital art galleries with no visitors. They built virtual shopping malls where nobody shops. They constructed elaborate virtual worlds that feel more like expensive ghost towns than thriving digital societies. The promised revolution in how humans interact with technology has turned into one of the most expensive exercises in virtual emptiness ever conceived. But here's where the story gets truly bizarre. Meta can somehow afford to lose $60 billion because their core business is the most efficient money-making machine in human history. While Reality Labs burns cash like a furnace, Facebook and Instagram continue generating profits that would make oil companies jealous. Every day, billions of people open these apps, scroll through content, and generate advertising revenue that flows directly into Meta's coffers. It's like owning the world's most profitable restaurant, while simultaneously spending all your profits on building rockets that keep exploding on the launch pad. This creates a surreal corporate situation, where one division prints money, while another division burns it, and somehow both can coexist within the same company. Meta's advertising business is so dominant that it can subsidize what amounts to the most expensive research and development project in corporate history. But even money-printing machines have limits, and investors are starting to ask uncomfortable questions about how long this can continue. The pressure is mounting from multiple directions. Apple entered the mixed reality space with their Vision Pro, bringing their typical premium approach to a market that Meta has been desperately trying to create. Google, which had retreated from consumer VR, is reportedly working on new projects. ByteDance, the company behind TikTok, is developing their own VR hardware. Meanwhile, TikTok continues eating into Meta's core social media business, especially among younger users who represent the future of digital engagement. These competitive threats matter because Zuckerberg's entire thesis depends on Meta becoming the dominant platform in what he believes will be the next major computing paradigm. He's betting that just as smartphones replaced desktop computers, mixed reality headsets will eventually replace smartphones. It's a bold vision, but it requires being first to market with compelling hardware, software, and content. Every day that passes with low adoption rates makes this vision seem less inevitable and more like wishful thinking. The human cost of this gamble extends beyond just dollars. Meta has laid off over 20,000 employees in multiple rounds of cuts, while simultaneously continuing to pour billions into reality labs. The company that once prided itself on rapid growth and unlimited ambition has become a study in corporate cognitive dissonance. Employees in profitable divisions watch their colleagues get fired while billions get allocated to projects with unclear returns. Zuckerberg himself has become increasingly isolated in his conviction. While other tech leaders hedge their bets across multiple technologies, Zuckerberg has staked his legacy on a single vision of the future. He regularly posts videos of himself using VR technology, often to lukewarm public reception. His avatar presentations have become internet memes, not inspiration. The man who once effortlessly connected with users through social media now seems disconnected from what those same users actually want. The broader tech industry watches this experiment with a mixture of fascination and horror. Some admire Zuckerberg's willingness to bet big on the future. Others see it as the hubris of a CEO who lost touch with reality. Venture capitalists who once threw money at any metaverse startup have become significantly more cautious. The entire concept of virtual worlds as the next big thing has been tainted by Meta's struggles to find an audience. Yet Zuckerberg continues doubling down. In every earnings call, he reiterates his belief that this is a long-term investment that will eventually pay off. He points to the early days of smartphones, when critics dismissed them as expensive toys for tech enthusiasts. He argues that revolutionary technologies always face skepticism before achieving mass adoption. He insists that Meta is building the infrastructure for a future that doesn't exist yet, but inevitably will. The question that keeps investors, employees, and industry observers awake at night is simple but profound. Is Mark Zuckerberg a misunderstood visionary who's simply ahead of his time? Or is he a brilliant CEO who made the most expensive mistake in business history? Is he building the foundation for the next era of human-computer interaction? Or is he burning through billions on a fantasy that consumers fundamentally don't want? The stakes couldn't be higher. If Zuckerberg is right, Meta will control the next computing platform and potentially become the most valuable company in history. If he's wrong, we're witnessing the slow-motion collapse of one of the most successful businesses ever created. With $60 billion already spent and no signs of slowing down, we're about to get our answer, whether this will be remembered as the greatest comeback story in tech history or the most expensive cautionary tale ever told. The clock is ticking, the money is still burning, and the entire tech industry is watching to see whether Mark Zuckerberg's $60 billion bet will make him the architect of our digital future or the author of the most expensive failure in corporate history. What do you think? Is the metaverse inevitable, or is Meta simply throwing good money after bad? The answer will define not just the future of one company, but the entire trajectory of how humans interact with technology.